It's a beautiful day today, and it's a beautiful day to read about entitled people. It's going to be a wonderful but also infuriating episode, and I hope you guys are ready. And let's get into it. Enjoy, guys. They wanted me to give them my house 5 years ago. I was 23, female at the time, and I had a friend I'll call Jane. I'd known Jane for a few years, but we weren't super close. She had a boyfriend and a young son, and they were being evicted from their house because they spent their government assistance money on pot, and neither of them could keep a job. Their house was also trashed. I'd been living in a beautiful little townhouse in the same town for about a year. I was a single mum and I was receiving help from rental assistance. I worked 40 hours a week at a grueling metal manufacturing plant, and finally I was in a position to buy a home with my then boyfriend, now husband. My lease on the townhouse wouldn't be up for a few more months after buying the house. We were all hanging out in the townhouse when Jane said, "Well, the least you could do is let us live here since you have a house now." I told her that as much as I wish I could, I don't have the authority to let her just move in. It was heavily regulated. She threw a huge fit and she threatened to call the rental assistance place and report me for quote unquote not needing their assistance if I didn't let her stay in the empty townhouse. She thought for sure that they'd fine me or something. This really pissed me off. I told her firmly that she could go ahead and let them know. The whole point of rental assistance and assistance in general is to bridge the gap until you can support yourself. She got all huffy and started trying to apologize once she realized that she couldn't blackmail me. And then she asked if she could live in my new house with me. I was like, did you miss the part where you were threatening me? So of course I said no. And she lost it, called me greedy and selfish, saying it would be my fault if they ended up homeless. It did suck because I know I could have made their life easier in that moment, especially for the kid, but there's no way I could get past all of the disrespect. Edit to reiterate that this took place 5 years ago. I went no contact after this and I never gave them another minute of my time. Yeah, that's so wild. And like the top comment says, her problem started when she demanded and ordered instead of asking for help. Yeah, definitely. And that one sounded kind of familiar. I'm not sure if we've read it before, but yeah, either way, the audacity to say something like that. And also the way they worded it was super bad. Like, well, the least you could do is let us live here. Like, what do you mean the least they could do? Yeah, that's so awful, OP, and you not giving them another minute of your time, that's definitely the right move. Entitled boyfriend of housemate thinks he can live in my student home for free, and then slander me online when we all ask him to leave. This is an old one, but I thought it might be a good read. When I was a uni student, one of my housemates was dating a guy from her hometown. She invited him to come visit for a couple of weeks, which we were all fine with, but that couple of weeks visit turned into him moving in and mooching off us. They both informed us that he'd find a job and pay his fair share, but this didn't happen. He made no effort to find a job, he didn't pay rent, paid nothing towards the bills, did nothing towards cleaning the house. He just spent all the time taking up our communal area playing video games and watching TV. In their bedroom they proceeded to have extremely loud horizontal mumbo that everybody could hear because the walls are so thin. In the end we had enough. How did you not have enough after like 1 day? Please don't tell me you put up with this for long. It was about 3 months into his squatting. That's way too long. That us remaining 3 housemates had a chat about whether this was acceptable. Obviously we were all in agreement that it wasn't, and we set up a meeting with the girlfriend and the interloper. It was decided that I'd be the one to broach the subject and take the lead on the conversation, informing them both that he'd overstayed his welcome and it was time that he went home. He argued that he'd been struggling to find a job and that's why he was unable to pay his way, but we all pointed out that he hadn't even made any attempts to find a job, just spending all his time on the sofa playing video games. Eventually his girlfriend agreed that he'd been taking the piss a bit and asked if he wouldn't mind going home. He did, and I thought that was the end of it. Oh, it wasn't. On the day of his moving out, he proceeded to post something on Facebook, thanking my other 2 housemates for being welcoming hosts, while deliberately dragging my ass in the post, claiming that I was a really poor host and throwing him out for no reason. Of course, I wasn't going to stand for that, calling him out and making it very clear that it was a collective house decision, and that he'd been living with us rent-free for several months, which was not acceptable, and pointing out that we would have been happy for him to stay if he was paying any sort of contribution to the house, but he wasn't. That ended in him making a groveling apology under my comment, saying he was sorry and that he didn't intend for it to come out like that, etc, etc. I didn't accept it because I knew what he was doing, and I just said that he should take down the post because he's made an idiot of himself. He did, but I still made sure my side of the story was out there by making my own post. Anyway, he went home, we got our house back, and he didn't visit again. Anytime my housemate and he wanted to see each other, she would go back home. After a few weeks, I'd also found out that he also set up mobile contracts with his address listed as ours and wasn't paying them. I gave all the bills to my housemate to give to him. They eventually broke up, but honestly, she wasted too much time and energy on that complete waste of space. He was just an entitled user who didn't expect to come up against 3 girls who weren't gonna take his crap. Yeah, and the whole struggling to find a job stuff when they're not even trying, and not to mention all the other stuff. That's infuriating. I don't know how you lasted 3 months, but I suppose you were sort of waiting to see if it'd get any better. But yeah, it just didn't. OP said in the comments that nobody in my house was good with confrontation, and we just wanted to keep the peace with the one that he was dating. If I hadn't have gone to my housemates in the end, he would have taken advantage of us even longer. In hindsight, I wish we'd tried to get rid of him sooner. Yeah, fair enough, OP, and the main thing that matters is they're not there anymore. But yeah, in retrospect, it's so frustrating. Like, oh my god, why didn't we kick you out so much sooner? The next one is called I, 26 female, kicked my soon-to-be ex-friend, 25 female, out of my house. As the title says, last week I kicked what I thought was a good friend out of my house because I can no longer handle her antics. Just want to write it here just to de-stress and deal with the grief of losing a friend. Kendall, 25 female, and I met in university in 2016. We studied different majors, but we're from the same department, so we share many different classes together, and we bonded over our passion for gaming and memes. Upon graduation, Kendall moved back to her hometown due to COVID and found a job there. We kept in touch online through Instagram. About 3 years later, Kendall told me she found a better paying job in the city, so she's planning to move out from her parents' place. When I asked her about her plans on her accommodation, she replied with, "That's the thing, I was going to ask you if you have an extra bedroom that I could move into." For context, I've inherited an apartment from my late grandfather, which is a nice 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom near the city centre, and that was last January. And I currently live alone there since it's closer to my workplace, and it has all the convenience of public transport. After some thinking, I thought there was no harm in living with Kendall. Since I considered us as close as friends, we discussed the terms and of course the rent. A week later, Kendall moved into my apartment. It was great at first, my home felt more lively than usual, and the thought of going home to a close friend did warm my heart and gave me a sense of security. Things were okay for a while, and then crap went downhill super quick. Kendall started complaining about many things at home, about her work, her savings, and how she feels homesick. At first, I was very accommodating, thinking maybe she just needs time to get used to the city life. I offered as much help as I can, even to the point that if she's low on money, I don't mind voiding a month's rent if it meant I could help her to achieve financial stability. I taught her how I save money, how I live off my then low salary, with several commitments like my car, my dog, and a student loan. I grew up where my parents expect me to be independent, so I told her things I do when I'm low on cash, how to get freelance jobs, etc. But she always seemed to have excuses for every suggestion I have. Finding a freelance job is too hard, or how she couldn't let go of her premium junk food, that she isn't willing to cook or meal prep, and I eventually decided to leave it as it is. And after 2 months of living together, I realized Kendall started treating me as some kind of competition. She would constantly ask me things like how much money I make a month, how many job hoppings did that take, anything that she thinks she's better than me, she'll definitely pop that question. She boasts about how she's loyal to her crappy paying company, and how I'd never be able to move up the corporate ladder, as she called me an industry frog. She once snooped at my savings balance and asked how the hell did I save so much with commitments. Mind you, she didn't have a lot of commitments. Her parents paid off her student loans and fully paid off a brand new car for her, and maybe I should stop collecting rent from her. I got mad and I told her that if she isn't happy with me, maybe she should move out. Cue the crocodile tears as she said it was a joke, I didn't have to take her seriously, and she begged for my forgiveness and promised to never snoop at my personal items and details again. I let it go once, but she kept bringing things up, like, well, you have the cash and the credit card. Every time I told her I'd rather stay home because I no longer have the budget to go out and have fun. Comments like these became more frequent when I got a new job 6 months ago. On top of that, she doesn't clean up after herself, tried to flirt with my boyfriend, and at times parked in my parking space, when our initial agreement was that she has to find her own parking space if she's going to move in with her own car, because my apartment only has one parking lot per unit. The straw that broke the camel's back was when I caught her kicking my dog in his abdomen when I got home from work. I yelled at her and I rushed to check my dog. Luckily he was fine, but I still rushed him to the vet for safety measures. I got home and she sneered that it was just a dog, and as a friend I shouldn't treat her like that. I asked why she'd kicked my dog and she didn't answer me. She shrugged and tried to escape into her room. At this point it was already about a year since Kendall moved in with me. I lost my cool and I told her off, bringing up her problems and how I tried to be nice and accommodating. Then I told her I'm giving her a week to move out, and from then on I'd rather we keep our relationship casual or we don't ever talk at all. Kendall cried and begged me to not kick her out, but soon it turned into her screaming back at me, calling me a bad friend because apparently in her words, I didn't tell her off on how badly she was behaving. Like, what the hell? Yeah, well, take some responsibility. Oh my god. There was a lot of back and forth which I didn't remember what I said, but I remember eventually calling her an entitled brat. She cried again saying it was uncalled for and stormed off to her room. The next day I was bombarded from texts from other uni friends, some calling me selfish and others sympathized with me. This part here is what always frustrates me about these sorts of stories. Why are other people giving their opinion? Like, stay out of it. Apparently Kendall posted our argument on Facebook and Instagram, painting me to be the bad guy. I was upset at first, but I decided that after Kendall moved out we'd no longer be friends, as well as those who took her side of the story and condemned me. Last week Kendall left and I've changed the locks on my apartment. I curled up on my bed and cried myself out, probably from the sadness of losing a friend, or maybe I'm finally letting out all the frustrations. I'm definitely still grieving about this loss of a friend, and I've had many good times with Kendall. For now I want to focus on myself and hopefully I eventually get over this. Edit the whole teasing that I have more money than Kendall got worse when I told her I was given an offer by an MNC as a senior designer, and I told her the offered salary, as we always did, like I know how much she earns too, which was about 50% more than hers. That was dumb on my part. I now understand why my parents told me to never disclose or discuss salaries from the moment I started working. Yeah, OP, Kendall is not a good friend. They were treating you awfully, and not to mention they were kicking your dog. What? You're in such a better position now that they're gone, OP. Like, it's only going to be up from here. And yeah, what sort of an a-hole gets frustrated and kicks somebody else's dog? That's revolting. The next one is called Entitled Mum Trying to Buy Alcohol. At work we have Christmas vouchers that can be used alongside our staff card to use in store. It's a private owned farm shop, so niche products. One year the entitled mum and her son, who was 17, UK age is 18 for alcohol, came around for her to spend his voucher. The kid did look nervous and his mother was a character. All we could hear from her was, "I'll buy this and this." She basically overrode any decision of what the kid wanted to spend his voucher on. They come up to the till and that's where it happens. She's trying to purchase alcohol with his staff card that we scan and his voucher, so we refuse the sale. She kicks off the whole "I'm paying for it" spiel. Our colleague speaks up and tells her, "You're not paying for it. He is with his voucher and he's underage." We were told not to sell alcohol to minors, gesturing to the now embarrassed lad. She didn't like that, called for the manager, who emphasizes our point and reiterated the policy. Manager said the voucher was for the colleague to spend, so by the law they couldn't sell the alcohol to him, so she didn't win. But the poor lad was so embarrassed by his mum telling her to just leave it. We felt bad for him. He's well liked at work and he's totally the opposite of her. Yeah, like the top comment says, that wasn't the first time he got embarrassed by his mum throwing a tantrum. Yeah, how sad is that? They probably do stuff like this everywhere. I think about that every time we read a post about a Karen. Like, they're probably super awful to like every employee they come across. And yeah, the son in this story was probably hoping so much that his mum didn't embarrass him. Yeah, that's so frustrating. The next one is called the ER Karen. So for context, one night at 12 AM in August 2023, I suddenly felt weak in the knees and I had to hold onto things to get around, or I'd uncontrollably lose balance. I fell to my bedroom floor when getting out of bed to feed my cat, and when I opened my eyes I had double vision. My mum said my pupils were tiny dots and I felt an extreme aura around my head, and I felt nauseous and I had muscle spasms. I didn't know what the hell was happening and it scared the hell out of me. I tried going back to sleep, but really I wanted to go to the emergency room because I felt like I was dying. The next morning the mystery symptoms had subsided and I was laying on the couch watching TV while my mum had gone to an appointment to get the car fixed. I told her I was fine before she left, but about an hour later I started feeling the symptoms again. My friend that had stayed that night tried to assure me that it was just the bottle of twisted tea I had the previous day, but I wasn't convinced a mere 12-ounce bottle of 5% alcohol volume would make me feel like I'm dying. I'm not that much of a lightweight. So anyway, I called my mum and I told her I wanted to go to the ER, and she said to call my dad and ask him to take me. So I called my dad and he took me to the hospital. Sorry for the long intro, I promise it gets interesting from here. So we arrive at the emergency room, and after I check in I see a lady with her 4 to 5 year old son who apparently had a skin rash. Even more context, he wasn't in anaphylactic shock or anything, just a case of contact dermatitis from an allergen or something, not something to go to the ER for. So at first Karen seemed fine when we engaged in some small talk, but it only spiraled from there. Apparently she'd been waiting for over an hour and it was beginning to show. Her kid was getting antsy and was scratching his arm where the rash was located. Karen went from "Sweetie, I know it itches, but please don't scratch," to "Stop scratching it now." The Karen meter is rising. Then her kid started running around and laughing, and she told him to sit down in an ugly sort of tone. And of course, he didn't. He then took his shoes off and continued running, with his mother and a couple of employees chasing him around the room. This is where Karen's temper was at critical levels when she said, "If you don't sit down right now, we're leaving," as if he were misbehaving at a toy or something. Like, seriously, if your kid's rash is such an emergency, why would you threaten to leave? Eventually I get called into the office and Karen jumps in front of me and starts yelling, "No, I was here first." The doctor was bewildered and he signaled for me to keep going. I inched past Karen and watched her from the office. She continued yelling and stuck her finger in the doctor's face, saying, "My son is having a severe reaction. I've been waiting for over an hour and I was here first. If I don't get called in the next 20 minutes, I'm complaining." Yes, severe reaction indeed. I wish I could have recorded this, but I was afraid I'd get in trouble, and I was afraid to look at my phone screen in case my double vision returned. But I'll always look back on that day and laugh. Yeah, that's so annoying that you had to deal with them. But also, hopefully you're okay, OP, and whatever you had going on got better. That sounded so scary when you were explaining how it felt. But yeah, once again, I can't even imagine the sort of stuff people see that work at a place like this. There would be entitled Karens every day. The next one is called Plant Manager Saw a Bag of Food in the Fridge. Thought the food fairies left it for her to pilfer. This was 20 plus years ago, but I'll never forget it. I used to work in the office of a manufacturing plant. There was a group of us, 4 females, that would pitch in to buy lunch stuff to hold us through the week. We'd make a list on Friday and one of us, usually me, would shop on Monday morning and bring it in with us. We even brought in a sandwich maker and toaster to keep us from getting bored. We'd been doing this for months when suddenly the food wouldn't last through the week. The first time we chalked it up to us being hungrier than normal and moved on. By week number 3, we decided that we just need to buy more stuff, and we did. But again, it ran out faster and we were really confused. One day I went to grab something from the break room and there were all of our bags on the table and the plant manager making a ridiculously large sandwich. When I asked her what she was doing, she said making a sandwich. I asked her if anybody told her that she could make lunch from our stash. She said no and went on to say that she found these bags of groceries and that she'd been doing it for weeks. I let her know that the groceries were ours and we were trying to save money, but now we know why our food was running out so fast. She said that she didn't know they were ours. She just thought that somebody brought them for everyone. No, she didn't. I asked her why she didn't find out who they belonged to first, and she looked at me like a deer in headlights. When I let my co-workers know, they were pissed. One of them said she knew they were our groceries because she'd asked my co-worker why she had so much food one day. We stopped the lunch group that week and we started bringing food from home. A couple of weeks later, the plant manager asked me where our groceries were. I let her know that we couldn't afford to keep feeding people that made more than we did. Edit time because I left there in 2002 and didn't do math right. Yeah, stuff like this is the peak of entitlement. Like, oh yeah, I'll just help myself to all of your stuff and not even ask as well. And of course they weren't asking because they knew they shouldn't have been doing it and they wanted to keep getting away with taking your food. And also the fact that they didn't even apologize. Oh, infuriating. The next one is called Entitled Client Thinks That Everything Can Be Solved by Talking to the Supervisor. For a little more context, I work as a receptionist at a medical clinic and it's not my job of choice. Even though I don't love my job, I do take it seriously as other people's health is not a joke. In addition to having the job policy of doing the best job possible at the moment, having to correct later what is much more work, I've seen many clients who are rude or disrespectful, including an elderly lady trying to beat my co-worker using a cane, which became the unit's internal joke for the month. In another day's work, a client arrives with 3 pages of exams to take. Big, but not the biggest I've ever seen. And as always, I added each exam to the system. Keep in mind that it's not the only step in the work. It is still necessary in some medical plans to make additional requests and add each individual code back to the health insurance system. As the client was on the phone, the first part was very quiet, but when she finished the call, she started complaining and insisting on being in a very loud tone for the whole place to hear, talking about how long I was taking and how much time she needed, too much to be there. As professionally as possible, I said what I was doing. The most delayed part was attaching the order to a fixed agreement and waiting for the return. The client asked to speak to my supervisor, who was already coming to see what had happened. My supervisor knows this type of client very well, and he knows that it isn't possible to do all the procedures by magic. With all the professional words he explained to the client did not accept what my supervisor said and demanded that my supervisor substitute me for opening the record. My supervisor, being responsible for the area, had to resolve the situation. Now comes the part that the client doesn't know. All the forms have to be opened at the login of who was making the request, and I was no longer responsible. With a big smile, I erased everything I spent almost 2 hours doing, and bonus, I had to cancel the request for medical insurance. Good luck having to wait another 2 hours for a completed medical record to be done again, in addition to the time after the exams are approved in the health insurance. P.S. I'm studying English, and if I do have misspellings, please let me know. Wow, that's so awesome. Good on you, OP. And like the top comment says, that's brilliant. The fun you can have when it backfires on an entitled person. And all you can say is that I'm following your request of it not being me. Unfortunately for you, I have to delete all that I've submitted so far. Yeah, that's so awesome, OP. And on that note, I feel like that's enough entitled people for today. I want to read something wholesome so bad. So yeah, let's do that. This girl was staring at me, so I looked at her and I said, "I love your tattoo." And she said, "I was just admiring how gorgeous your hair is. This is why you should never assume that girls are being mean when they stare low." Oh, that's so unexpectedly wholesome. Like Like, wow, thank you. You made my day today. Oh yeah, this one. Last month my cat disappeared. A week ago I found him and I brought him home. Today my cat came back. Now I have 2 identical cats, and they really are identical. Like, yeah, obviously you confused the 2, and I can definitely understand why. That's the same cat, and they're so adorable. Like, ah, well, I've got 2 beautiful cats now. Hello, I'd like you to meet my long lost brother when the FaceTime connects. Oh, I'd love to have a FaceTime call with a little pig. Oink oink, hello. I never realized how cute their noses are. And on that beautiful note, thank you for watching, everybody. I hope you had a wonderful time. And if you did and you want to see more Entitled People episodes, make sure you like and subscribe. And the comment of the day today goes to Bethany Gibson. I've been meaning to comment this. Every time you say bye at the end of your videos, my cat, Dabby, or Dabby, meows back at you as if he's saying bye too. Are you for real? That's so cute. Wow, that makes me so happy. There are kitty cats out there that are meowing to my videos. That's so awesome, and say hello to them for me. And yeah, thank you for the support. And with that being said, make sure you look after yourself and make sure you have a beautiful, amazing rest of your day. And you know what I'm about to say because I say it every single day. Bye!